Original papers of Malcolm X were slated to be auctioned by the San Francisco auction company Butterfields. There's been a welter of activities, both public and behind the scenes, to stave off that auction. Well, the auction has been staved off. The question is now, what? Now, two of my guests have been in the center of this story, and I'd like to welcome them both to Like It Is. Howard Dotson is the director of the Schoenberg Center for Research and Culture. Welcome to Like It Is. And Joseph Fleming is the attorney for the Shabazz family estate. Welcome.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Jim.
Let's try to put the story in some sort of context. It's been told in varying dimensions, but how did those papers end up in San Francisco in Butterfield's hands? And you should be the narrative.
All right. The papers began, of course, in the possession, in the ownership, and the control of the Shabazz family. They wound up in Florida at a storage facility there. They got there without the family's knowledge or the family's consent. In the storage facility, they remained for some period of time. But at some point in time, the storage facility took the material and put it up for auction. It was purchased by an individual who, recognizing what he had in his possession, then sent it to a Florida auction house for sale, who then sent it to this San Francisco auction house, Butterfields, for sale and auction.
Hold on. What kind of money was owed to the storage facility?
We hear varying accounts about the amount involved, but it was a piddling. It was a very small amount of money. It may have been less than $1,000. That's what was owed to the storage facility in Florida.
And so they confiscated the property in lieu of not being paid?
They did what any storage facility has a right to do under the laws of every state, and that is if you have material stored, you don't pay for the rental, we can auction that material.
I see. And so it went directly to the auction company, or did it go to an intermediary?
It went first to the individual who was the one who actually purchased the material at this auction. It went second to a Florida auction house. Now, this individual consigned it to this auction house. Here, take this material, sell it. When you get money for it, you give me my piece, you take your commission. The Florida auction house, for some reason, determined that Butterfields, a larger entity, would be able to do a better job in terms of selling this material. When it got to Butterfields, it became public that the material was available for sale. Once it became public that the material was available for sale, the family became aware that the material was missing. And then they began the process, which has now taken us to the point where the auction has been canceled.
All right, let me back up again and go over this. Is it known how those papers got from the New York City area down to Florida? By whose hands?
It is known. We know whose hands participated in the process. But actually, we're learning new information every day. And so, Gil, the best thing I can say right now is that the name of Malika Brown, Malika Shabazz, which is a daughter of Malcolm and Betty Shabazz, has been named by the storage facility as an individual who was involved in the process. And so we have no choice at this point but to confirm that that is so. And we've known that. We have chosen, however, not to make public that knowledge and not to stir any public pots with respect to that process, and we're still not going to. At the most, we're going to confirm that yes, Malika Brown and Malika Shabazz are one and the same, and that she is in fact a daughter of Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz. Beyond that, the family is not prepared to comment.
So in other words, the papers were put in storage in her name?
Yes.
Okay. Is it known whether or not the storage facility recognized the value of that which they had confiscated after the money was overdue?
That we don't know, and so we're not going to speculate on it.
Is it known that the intermediary who purchased it realized the value?
Certainly. That obviously he did. That's why he put it up for auction.
All right. Now, what was the argument that you used to have this auction forestalled?
And every time someone sells something, you want to be sure when you buy it that the chain of title is correct, that there are no defects in that chain of title. The argument we used, which is in fact the truth, is that there is a significant defect in that chain of title. The property got from where it was and where it should have been to where it ultimately wound up and where it should not have been. And it did so without the knowledge and without the consent of the rightful owners of the property. That there is a defect in the chain of title. Now, beyond that, you should know, Gil, that in addition to this information, the auction house now has further information which it obtained from the storage facility in an action that they filed in the Superior Court in Los Angeles, that they believe, the storage facility believes now, that there was a defect in the process of the sale which impacted and which affects the legal title that this intermediary, as we're now calling him, had. And what that means very clearly is that that chain that leads from New York to Florida to San Francisco has many breaks along the way, that there are no solid links. And that means that the ultimate possessor of the property, if it's not the family, has property to which it does not have adequate legal title. Now, everyone in this process now understands that, which is why Butterfields pulled it from the auction block.
Mm-hmm. Now, you haven't mentioned in your reasons for interceding and holding off the auction what was said in the communities. Mm-hmm. And that is, this is a valuable collection, and it's important that it not be sold willy-nilly to a various number of purchasers.
The width and breadth of the collection is tremendous. Its historical value, I believe, is probably one of the greatest in the 20th century. It gives us a full view of the man Malcolm X and part of his evolution over a period of a decade.
But that really wasn't used in your argument. You were raising some specific questions.
Not at all. Those are arguments, I think, that are more important to us and to the family than to that process in San Francisco right now.
Right. Well, we're out of time for this particular segment, but in the next segment, I'm going to warn you in advance, Mr. Dotson, that it's going to be for you to assess the value of these papers. Right after this. Let me have, as I warned you, your assessment of the value of this collection. You've scrutinized it to some degree.
Yes, I did personally, and then one of the members of my staff actually went out and spent the better part of a day and a half looking at the material in great detail. I got wind of its existence through a phone call from a friend, Abdullah Kalimat, scholar who studies Malcolm X, and he called me and said, "Have you been looking at the internet recently?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, there's a lot of Malcolm stuff up on eBay's website." I said, "What?" And so he guided me to the site, and we started going through it. And each element that I looked at, frankly, my mouth fell open, because the first, one of the first things I saw was the Malcolm's own personal Quran. Which, how'd this get here? And then from that to letters from him to his brother Filbert while he was in prison, and from that to drafts of speeches and manuscripts of speeches and manuscripts of his radio programs over the years, basically the script for his radio programs each week. Mm-hmm. And then the really remarkable documents that were there were the two diaries, one from his trip to Mecca and the other from his return trip to Africa when he met with many of the African leaders. All of these pieces of information, there are